Sitting in front of me is one of my favorite MCs. It's been a long time since, last time I seen you was in LA, but this is the first time getting a chance to interview you. It's the one and only Jean Grae, and you are in the building. She's a dope MC, good artist, funny writer, and you could, good tweeter, and you could do the whole comedian thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is old hat for you, but for a lot of our listeners, they don't know. Jean Grae, I know the name from comic book legends, but where does Jean Grae hail from, and why the name?
Well, the name actually came from when I was changing my name from What, which was around for a few years. And I kind of wanted to go solo as a solo artist, and it was right after Natural Resource, and I sat around and I thought about a few names, and myself and Pumpkinhead were actually sitting around trying to come up with things, and he suggested Miss Marvel, and I was like, I don't want to go with anything that has a miss in front of it. I think it's just kind of implied because of the boobs. You can tell. But I did. I wanted a comic book name, and I wanted a kind of superhero name, and I wanted something cool. And I loved What, because part of my, I guess, Tourette's is being able to balance out words and having, I like the idea of having the same number of letters, and I think about logos and think about everything when it's involved in a name. And it kind of went, we thought of Miss Marvel, Phoenix, and then he suggested Jean Grae, and I was like, that one's perfect. I was like, plus, just the idea of the story, and Jean Grae's story is amazing, going from Jean to the Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix, in addition to being pretty much the most powerful X-Men. But her powers aren't necessarily anything really blatantly obvious, and I have a fear of heights, so I didn't want to necessarily fly. I didn't want that power, and I liked the fact that it was an intellectual almost power.
Did Marvel Comics say anything to you?
Please don't bring that up.
Okay, we'll let that go.
Not yet.
Not yet. But you've done justice to it, though.
And I actually I finally reviewed the X-Men movie for MTV. The First Class movie, and it was great. And I was like, yeah, thank you guys for finally catching on. Let's hope this doesn't go to, please don't tell me to change my name. I don't want to do that.
No, she can't. I mean, too many people know you for who you are. I'm confused right now in terms of your albums. What do you have, 6 or 7 albums? Because we were just joking, I find things floating around. It's like, there's Genius with Ninth Wonder, and there's Cake or Death. And people say they have it, but then we can't find it nowhere. And then there was a mixtape that came out, what was it, Comas and Cookies, or Cookies and Coma.
So the official albums that have come out that I've actually had something to do with are mixtapes. I can exclude the orchestral files, the deluxe edition orchestral files, amazing, and Evil Genius albums I had absolutely nothing to do with. The last thing that we did was, album-wise, was Genius, mixtape Cookies or Comas, and Cake or Death has yet to come out. So,
okay.
Yes.
So it's not out yet?
No, it is not. You guys would totally know if it was out, I promise you.
When you are putting together albums, every group and every artist has a particular way in which they attack this. How do you go about doing it? I mean, is it put it all in one shot? Is it really take your time like fine wine? Is it sitting in a room collaborating with a bunch of folks?
I think it differs with every project. Genius took 4 days, and Cake or Death has taken 5 years. So I don't necessarily, and I never know when I start with a project how long it's going to take. And I'm thankful to be working with people at this point who are like, at first we were rushing things and trying to be like, this should be out and this should be out. But I think it's great to have gotten to a point of people being like, no, we want it to be right. So when everything is right, that's when it's done, and that's when it's ready. And I think it was Guy who said something the other day, and someone asked him when Cake or Death's coming out. He was like, hey, man, this is not Burger King. We're not flipping burgers over here. This is a gourmet meal. It's going to take its time, and when it's done, it's done.
And that's a good thing. That's what I was asking, because I got the sense that you were bucking the type of industry expectation. It seems to be an industry run, come out with an album every year. Then they line up all the press.
Right.
Everybody does the same story. You do the interviews all in one day video, and then like a year later, everything's
And
forgotten.
it's gone away. And we were just talking about this, the attention span, and I guess the kind of instant gratification of the way that things are done now. And people put out mixtapes and mixtapes and mixtapes with, 82 tracks on one mixtape, and I'm like, just slow down. It's okay. You don't have to go all reload on everything every time and then be like, oh my God, I'm gonna pass out. Just chill out. I think if you have timeless music, that's one thing. If you're making something that's not necessarily going to withstand the test of time, then I suggest that you get all of your music out right now.
Right.
If not, there's not really rules. There's not really, if you're an independent artist and you're not on a major label and you don't have to pay attention to those kind of dates, then be smarter, be creative, and use the internet and technology and your independence in the best way that you can.
Are you going to come with a band?
Maybe. Sometimes I'm really happy to see people on stage with a band because I'm like, okay, you have the kind of songs that I want to see played out with a full band. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to hear that song or that album with a band. I want to see you with a DJ, and I want it to sound the way it sounds. I think people need to make better choices whether or not you're going to use a band. Not everything requires a live band all the time. If we had a whole bunch of money, I would do some shows like that and definitely do, full band and horn section and string section. But sometimes it doesn't feel like you should be doing that. So, yes and no.
We've been talking with Jean Grae. I had an argument with somebody the other day who was comparing you as an MC and just the overall vibe to a legendary artist. But I wanted to know how you compare yourself. Do you see yourself, or have you been inspired by somebody? And I'll tell you who the MC was that they feel that you most resemble.
I'm just inspired by music in general, and good music, and anything that makes me feel anything emotionally. It doesn't matter what genre it is. I think a lot of times that people don't necessarily get it, and it's just overall perception rather than you're actually listening to what I'm doing or saying, which sometimes gets a little tiring. And then a lot of times it's just, hey, you have boobs and she has boobs, hey, you guys are the same. My parents, I would say, would be the biggest inspiration for anything.
Okay, so I might have won the bet. Yeah, the argument is that you were being contrasted with Biggie. And they said, and I was like, really? And it was like, man, listen. And the person was going through like lyric by lyric, and it's like, if you listen to this, and if you listen to Biggie, and she sounds just the same way, and she's hitting it this way, and I'm like, and I was like Biggie, and I was like,
that is actually one of the most interesting comparisons I've ever heard. I think.
Don't tell me you agree, because I'm about to lose my $10.
I think in some ways, I love the fact that Biggie snuck in things like Dr. Seuss rhymes and was completely unconventional with the way he would hit certain things. And I'm not saying I'm necessarily...
You talked to my boy, didn't you?
No, I don't even know who you're talking about. I wouldn't have brought that up, but I think I've never heard that comparison. I'm totally flattered. I think Biggie was more unconventional than people understood that he was.
So that's the word he used. He said, listen to her. He said, she put stuff in there, man, and blah, blah, blah. Because immediately I was on the surface. I said, well, Biggie's talking about killing himself and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, but, man, it's deeper than that, son. Listen to the thing. And I was like,
I that impression is awesome. I actually redid Biggie's Suicidal a long time ago. Yeah, I think he used a lot of trickery to get you to think that he wasn't saying all that stuff when he really was. So whoever said that, thank you.
Okay, so no $10 for Dave. Right now, a lot of folks are out there, a lot of new groups that are on the scene. Some of them are very much in the vein of using the whole auto-tune and that whole genre. Then you got a lot of the new cats, the Odd Futures and the Little Bees and all that. One, do you feel that the audience has moved in directions that's hard to keep their attention or keep them interested? Do you have your own lane, or do you find yourself, being forced to like maybe move in the direction of some of the new sound and styles that are out there?
I don't think anything is a new sound. It's a resurgence of kind of 90s ish that we were doing. And, you know, a lot of it is shock rap, and it's really lyrical, and it's dirty ass beats, and yeah. No, I never felt any pressure to pay attention to anything else that's going on. I just kind of do my own thing.
You being on the West Coast, you know, I used to joke around and be like, we need to call you West Coast Jean, and we need to put you with a Raider thing on, you know. What's the deal? How come we don't see Jean out in the West as much? And what's it going to take to, you know, make you be here, adapt you, and, you know, make you one of our own? Or are you strictly a New Yorker or South African?
Money. I really enjoy money. And if people would pay for me to go places, that would be awesome. And I would totally be there all the time. Like, you know, I feel really bad when people are posting like, but what, I see your tour dates, but what about you coming here? What about you going there? And I'm like, I understand that you guys don't understand how things necessarily work. Like, I'm not like, give me a map. I want to go here, 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 and here. Go. You know, I'm not a promoter or a booking agent, and I do the best I can to get to all the people that I can.
But do some cities feel like home, a natural fit in terms of the attitude, the vibe? I mean, and I say this, you know, I mean, the West Coast, especially the Bay, seems like a Jean Grae vibe.
I think there's music that, you know, there's towns that are definitely more music towns. Like, inexplicably, Houston is a really, really good home for me. And I have no idea why Houston isn't on this run, but hopefully I'll get there before the end of the year. Bay and LA and Chicago and Philly and DC and maybe not necessarily New York. New York.
But everybody's in New York. It's kind of had its run.
Wow. No.
I
can't say that.
Well, I'm from New York. I'm from New York too. But what I mean when I said it's had its run, I mean because a lot of the focus is on there. They kind of ran through everything. So it's like, let's focus on Brooklyn. Let's focus on the Bronx.
You know what it is with New York is that everybody's always just kind of comes out with like an awesome kind of vibe, which is great. We kind of don't really have, I think, a venue that we all feel at home. And I think, you know, back in the days where we could think of something like Tramps or Wetlands, and it was more of a, we also support our local artists as well as everybody who comes in here. New York is kind of in a funk right now, and we're kind of sad. And I need us to stop being sad, because there's a lot of great things going on in New York, and there's almost too many places to perform, but they're all like these giant venues, and you're like, well, we can't really fill those venues, so like it's either we do Highline or we do Rockwood. And I'm like, well, I would rather play Rockwood at this point.
A small, intimate setting.
Small, intimate places.
Does Jean Grae cook?
Very much so. I am very much I miss cooking while being on the road. And, you know, there's been places where we've been on tour. I'm like, oh my God, thank God we have a hotel with like a kitchen in it. And I will be the one person pushing a shopping cart full of stuff through the hotel to be like, okay, we're having garlic prawns and we're making, you know, creme brulee desserts. And yeah, I miss cooking when I'm out on the road. I'm definitely.
How would you contrast yourself with some of the other great hip hop chefs that are around? You got a chance to sample Mr. E, you know, in San Francisco. Did he pass the muster? And do you think your cooking is his cooking up to snuff with yours?
I'm not going to say that. I like people who cook with love, and you know, and also give amazing hospitality, you know, when you're in town, and that's what it's been about for me over the past, I'd say, 5-6 years. Just having big community dinners and having people over and being like, you know, people don't sit around and eat food and talk anymore. I'm a huge fan of anyone who is doing this, you know, especially for the love, and you can taste the love in the food. So, yeah.
You know, I got to ask you too, you're originally from South Africa, or your folks are, and there's a musical background there. That's been a big hot spot for hip-hop in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people that have their attention there and their eyes and ears, and, you know, is there an influence there? Do you go back much? And, you know, and how do we recognize it when it shows up?
I haven't been back in about... to perform in about 10 years. And I've definitely gotten offers from places that are like, come out and do the jazz festival, and there's not a lot of other shows booked around it. And I'm like, that's cool, but if we're doing no shows, like, I'm all in for coming in and getting whatever money those kind of promoters have. But if we're not going in to the places where these kids actually can't get into shows and they can't afford it, and we're not really going to them, then it's not worth it for me.
So Jean loves the kids.
I love the people, and I want to do it right. And this, sadly, it's been like back and forth with promoters over the past couple of years, and I think Pharaoh and I are both really, really trying to work something out where we can put some sort of tour together and go back there and do it correctly.
Pharaoh Munch, for people who don't know.
Pharaoh Smith. That's Pharaoh Sanders and I, which would be awesome. So yeah, but hopefully before the end of the year we can have that worked out, because it's been too long.
Do they claim you? Are there cats walking around going, she's us? Don't get it twisted, son. She's us.
They do very much, and I thoroughly appreciate it. And I think someone had complained a month ago on Twitter or something. It was like, how come you don't tell more people? And I'm like, I've never hidden that. I've never not said it at all. And I very much claim every place that I feel like I'm from, and South Africa and New York being, my homes. And my mom is actually back in South Africa right now, so I definitely now have to go out and be like, hey, Mom, we're back, and do something great.
Do you see the world being smaller, where those bridges are now coming more together, and it's not so much of a cultural difference and all that now?
I think technology changed a lot of things to make the world a smaller place, which we can all, enjoy the same wonderful things. Almost, you're online or on your social networking or on wherever, and you can be talking to people from all over the world at 24 hours. And Skyping on your phone and from your computer is absolutely amazing. And I think we have to take advantage of the great things about technology like that, that allow us to connect with each other. Yeah.
We're getting ready to wrap it up. But my last question, movies, future situations. I know you're a good writer. People say you should write a book. I think you should be in a movie, they should recast you as Jean Grae. Pull the other girl out.
People could be really horribly upset, just like Spider-Man, and that's only a comic. It's not even. There's a lot of things in the works. Life with Jeannie is going to be the show, so I'm really excited about that.
So you got a TV show?
We're working on shooting the pilot right now and about to start a Kickstarter campaign. So I'm really, really, really excited about getting into writing and directing, and all the videos coming out for Cake or Death. Hoping they'll be amazing. And The State of will be the book. And I was going to go through independent publishing, but I'm looking at self-publishing through Amazon. Use the internet for good things, because it's good.
We've been talking with Jean Grae. She's in the building with us. We appreciate it. We're going to take a break. We're out for now.
If I could swim 1,000 lakes to bring your life back, I write that for infinity.
Today, what we're going to do is...
And I liked the fact that it was an intellectual almost power,
Did Marvel Comics say anything to you?
Please don't bring that up.
Okay, we'll let that go.
Not yet.
Not yet. But you've done justice to it, though.
And I actually I finally reviewed the X-Men movie for MTV, the First Class movie, and it was great. And I was like, yeah, thank you guys for finally catching on. Let's hope this doesn't go to. Please don't tell me to change my name. I don't want to do that.
No, she can't. I mean, too many people know. And you could do the whole comedian thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is old hat for you, but for a lot of our listeners, they don't know. Jean Grae, I know the name from comic book legends, but where does Jean Grae hail from, and why the name?
Well, the name actually came from when I was changing my name from What, which was around for a few years, and I kind of wanted to go solo as a solo artist, and it was right after natural resource. And I sat around and I thought about a few names, and myself and Pumpkinhead were actually sitting around. It kind of went, we thought of Miss Marvel, Phoenix, and then he suggested Jean Grae, and I was like, that one's perfect. I was like, plus just the idea of the story, and Jean Grae's story is amazing, going from Jean to the Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix, in addition to being pretty much the most powerful X-Men. But her powers aren't necessarily anything really blatantly obvious, like, you know, and I have a fear of heights, so I didn't want to necessarily fly. Like, I didn't want that power.
Sitting in front of me is one of my favorite MCs. It's been a long time since, last time I seen you was in LA, but this is the first time getting a chance to interview you. It's the one and only Jean Grae, and you are in the building. She's a dope MC, good artist, funny writer, and you could, good tweeter.
I'm trying to come up with things, and he suggested Miss Marvel, and I was like, you know, I don't want to go with anything that has a miss in front of it. I think it's just kind of implied because of the boobs. You can tell. But I did. I wanted a comic book name, and I wanted a kind of superhero name, and I wanted something cool. And I loved what, because part of my, I guess, Tourette's is being able to balance out words and having, like, I like the idea of having the same number of letters, and I think about logos and think about everything when it's involved in a name. And